Last year was brutal. The 2021 250 MX Shootout was the toughest comparison in the 51-year history of Dirtbike magazine. The 250 class, or MX2, or lights, whatever you prefer, had evolved to a near parity in performance. Choosing a winner was more about who we asked and where we rode than anything else. Stopwatches and dynos were of no use. Now, the class of 2022 has arrived, and it doesn't look any easier. Welcome to the 2022 Dirtbike Magazine 250 Shootout. As one simple indicator to how close this contest will be, half of the motorcycles in this group roll off the same assembly line. The GasGas MC250F, Husky FC250, and KTM 250 SXF all share the same engine and frame, but they are different enough to have separate personalities. Of the other three, only the Honda is dramatically changed for 2022. So all eyes are focused on the battle within a battle between it and the Yamaha YZ250F, which won last year's shootout. This year, we have no Suzuki RMZ250. Even though it has a number of fans within the Dirtbike magazine testing crew, we were unable to get a suitable test bike beforehand. It is unchanged, so we can defer to the results of the 2021 shootout, which can be found at dirtbikemagazine.com. This year, we also broke tradition by running all 6 bikes in absolutely stock configuration, including the tires. In a contest this close, in this contest, even the smallest differences can have a big impact. When it was all over, here is what we found. The 2022 GasGas MC250F. Of the 3 Australian brands under the Pierre Mobility umbrella, GasGas has much greater importance than you might think. KTM and Husky are deemed too expensive by almost everyone, and the MC250F is offered at a lower price. In order to do that, it has a number of less expensive components. The handlebar is unbranded, but made by Neckin. The rims are Silver XLs, and the tires are Maxxis. The exhaust pipe has no chamber, the triple clamp is cast, and there is no map switch. For those sacrifices, the MSRP is $86.99, which is $700 less than the KTM and $800 less than the Husky. The Honda CRF 250R. We saw the Honda coming from a mile away. When the 2021 Honda CR450R got a new frame and a long list of changes, it was clear that the Honda was planning the same treatment for the CRF 250R. The chassis is entirely new, and the motor got so many updates and changes that you can almost call it brand new. The head, piston, rod, and cams are new, and the twice pipes are gone. The clutch was redesigned as well, although it didn't get the hydraulic treatment like the 450. The fork is still Showa, but is longer and has very different valving. Overall, the bike lost a significant amount of weight, some of it that attributed to the use of Pirelli tires. Husky FC250. Will Husky ever get away from the white KTM stigma? It already has. 2022 FC250 has enough of its own features to allow it to be judged on its own merits. As most people know, the frame and engine are the same as those of a KTM and a GasGas. There are significant differences in suspension, exhaust, intake, rims, handlebars, seat, and bodywork. Last year, the bigwigs at Pierre Mobility came up with the idea to shorten the suspension travel on the FC250 in order to appeal to a different rider. The seat height is about 20 millimeters lower at the lowest part of the saddle. That was done through changes in the fork, shock, and linkage. For 2022, there are no significant mechanical changes for the Husky. The Kawasaki Kx250. Kawasaki took its time to rebuild the Kx250 starting in 2020 with a new finger follower top end and finishing it in 2021 with a new chassis and electric start. In 2021, it also got a hydraulic clutch, the only Japanese 250 to do so. Along the same lines, it uses a cone disc spring for the clutch, which again is very European. This year it returns to action without any significant mechanical changes as well. The KTM 250 SXF. KTM's loyalty is to KTM. No matter how many brands are on the lifeboat, KTM has a reserved seat. Thankfully, times are good and no one is getting thrown overboard anytime soon. But by the same token, the engineers aren't going to do anything to handicap their firstborn. The KTM 250 SXF has a different airbox from the Husky and a different exhaust from the GasGas, so the motor has its own personality. The 250 SXF has no significant mechanical changes for 2022. The motor remains a dual overhead cam high rever that it has always been. Likewise, the steel chassis and WP suspension are all well-known commodities in the motocross world. The diaphragm spring clutch is actuated by Brembo hydraulics and the brakes are Brembo as well. The Yamaha YZ250F's success in pro motocross is stunning. In the hands of a Monster Energy Yamaha Star racing team, it has been the bike to beat for the last 3 years. You might think the stock version of the bike would be very pro-oriented. That's not the case, for the most part. Yamaha has resisted the call to build a high-revving screamer. The current YZ250F arrived in 2019 with an electric start, but still uses the reverse head arrangement with the airbox on top and the exhaust in the rear. It uses a traditional dual overhead cam valve arrangement with cams that directly drive valve buckets, not a finger follower inside. Last year, it got a redesigned top end and crank. And for 2022, it gets only a new rear wheel configuration and suspension updates. Now you might be thinking, how do they work on the track? This continues to be the toughest call in motocross. Never before have been so equally matched in their differences on the track. But that doesn't mean they're all the same. Each of the 2022 250 motocross bike appeals to a slightly different type of rider. Here's a quick bottom line of what we thought. The GasGas MC250F is a perfect counterpart to the KTM and Husky. It has the same strengths, while all its weak points are deliberate compromise for a different rider. The bike is more appealing to beginners, yet pros can make it go into anything they please. They always do. The Honda CRF 250R was a big favorite going into the shootout. It came very close to winning in 2021 and then gained power and lost weight. Unfortunately, Honda went backwards in the suspension department. And when a contest is this close, that makes a huge difference. The Husky FC250 earned a number of votes for first place. For young riders who are transitioning to a big bike, it makes perfect sense. It also earned high praise from taller riders who said there was no real drawback to the shorter seat height. No matter who you are, you appreciate the power, the lightweight, and the handling. The Kawasaki Kx250F is a staff favorite bike because it's so much fun to ride. Fun usually translates into quick lap times, but the KX high-strung personality makes it difficult to execute those perfect laps, time after time in the course of a race. KTM's 250 SXF influence goes far beyond the other Austrian bikes. It's a driving force in the 250 class and has been for years. Still, the 250 SXF isn't for everyone. It's still a pro-oriented bike with a distinctive personality. If that personality matches yours, nothing is better. The Yamaha YZ250F could have followed the others down the road to peak horsepower, but resisted in order to have a more forgiving personality. When you combine that with the suspension, which is nothing short of spectacular, you have a bike that appeals to 90% of the riders in the real world. If you are the 10% who demands power at all costs, there are others out there for you to choose from. as always, the ultimate decision is yours. This year, we gotta say, the choice is pretty tough. But the winner of the 2022 Dirtbike Magazine 250 Motocross Shootout is the Yamaha YZ250F. We love the fact that Yamaha doesn't bow to the trends that come and go in the motocross world. The YZ250F is a different bike in every way. That starts with the unorthodox motor configuration and continues in Yamaha's devotion to the development of the KYB suspension components. The Yamaha YZ250F has the most user-friendly power in the 250 class. That might not be reflected on any dyno chart, but the Yamaha motor provides the most immediate response to rider input. The Yamaha is the best bike for the average rider, and its success in the pro world proves that it can be so much more. The YZ does have its weaknesses, just like any bike, but we feel that it has the best overall package in the 250 class. So now you know who the winner is. If you want to see how the rest of the motorcycles stacked up, head over to dirtbikemagazine.com right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find the link in our description to the full results.